This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Long now with the Big Lebowski. You always associate that movie with bowling, and bowling is what Arkansas football wants to do. And they should have probably been, we're wondering what bowl game we're going to after the Liberty game, but that didn't happen.
Obviously, you're not a golfer.
Not a golfer, too.
At least I'm housebroken.
We've got Bill King with us here from Nashville Sports Radio. Bill, we thought we'd be talking bowl game stuff for Arkansas after this past Saturday. Liberty had other thoughts, and they already are bowl eligible. From the national perspective, what does the loss to Liberty do to the Arkansas brand?
It's already a disappointment. It just further douses it with doubt. It's a very good lesson. It's hard to maintain. What they achieved last year is hard, and it's harder to go back and do it again. And here's the other thing. I think the SEC is as deep. Now, Florida could be better, but in teams like that, but is as deep as I can remember. There's usually a couple of free lunches in the league. There's really only one right now. That's Vanderbilt. Missouri played Georgia better than Tennessee did.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, think about that for a moment. That's wild.
It's relentless. It is, and I know Liberty's not in the league, but Hugh Freeze is a fantastic coach. And I'm not real shocked. Now, I didn't expect to look up and it was 21-0 or whatever, but I'm not that surprised.
Bill, a lesson that I'm taking from this season, from this Arkansas season right now, is you can't go into a year, you can't come from a season where the bounces went your way. Really. I mean, if you look at it in those terms, Arkansas won the close games much more often than not last year. Tiny little things are the difference in that. It's not the same this year. The A&M game, that was a should have won. The Liberty game, that was a should have won, and they were tight. But the bounces didn't go Arkansas's way. And I guess the lesson is the bounces don't always go your way when you play so many tight games on a routine basis.
Yeah, and particularly when the margin of error is so tight, it's a big. Turnover is probably, if you could look at the stat sheet before a game, but you had the post-game stat sheet and they would just give you the turnovers, that'd probably give you a lot of clues about the outcome. A lot of times, more so than probably anything else. And Arkansas's got some personnel issues, too, that are rearing itself up. And that's been a problem. Obviously, keeping the quarterback healthy is been an issue as well.
Have you looked at this line? Like I've seen, so I've been watching college football for a little bit, not as long as you, but I've seen the last couple Arkansas games, the last couple LSU games, and it's -3. What am I not seeing?
Is LSU favored on the road? I didn't look.
Yeah, they're favored by 3.
Okay. LSU, this is now let me flip the script on you a little bit. This is a interesting spot for LSU. LSU is incredibly happy. They're very well coached. That's not surprising. Quarterback's playing his best ball. Defense is playing. And the Alabama game, even though this Alabama team we know isn't a typical superstar team top to bottom, it's still a good W for them. This is a very losable game for LSU. And I've been talking to the folks down there about this, just fans that call into the show. And I think this is a moment where Arkansas can grab back some happiness. And if I'm LSU, my expectation is I get Arkansas's game of the year. I get their best game of the year. It's a redemption day for them.
They need it because they haven't. I mean, you look at Arkansas and you think that Cincinnati might be our best win so far this year. So we haven't we've started off slow. A lot of games, turnovers, 3 and outs. We didn't score for 8 possessions, I believe, against Liberty. We better. I mean, we better show up, or it ain't going to be pretty.
No, and again, they're playing with so much confidence. Think about it. LSU wins out, they go play Georgia. I mean,
they control their destiny. Yeah.
Watch that Florida. Pop in the tape of the Florida State game, and they were just god awful. They have really reversed course.
Well, their quarterback, I think he might be one of the most improved players, but and I don't know how the style of offense is maybe a little complex, but it looks like he's settling. I mean, it's hard to learn that new offense. When I had a coordinator change over, and so you see him getting see him getting better each week.
No question, he's confident, and he's a dual threat problem. He can beat you below the waist, and he can beat you with his arm. Now, he's not a great arm talent, but he's good. And the receiving core, which again their leader's that Keyshawn Boutte kid who was pouting a lot early. It sounds like all that settled down, and they're happy.
Looking around the rest of the games, that Alabama-Ole Miss game, you think Lane Kiffin defends his home turf and puts that Alabama to 3 loss? I mean, what would the sky would be falling then?
Think about this. Alabama's season's ruined. It's ruined. Anything that you hoped. I mean, this team was the biggest overwhelming favorite to win the national championship preseason in at least 20 years, dating back to all those Southern Cal teams of 04, 05, the Texas teams, all of them. And this team, Alabama is really good at quarterback, obviously, really good with Jamar Gibbs. Offensive line is below average. Receivers are below average. Tight end's decent. He's pretty good. Edge, defensive ends, very good. Obviously, one of them might be the first pick of the draft. Interior defensive line, below average. I'm talking about Alabama now, their style. Linebackers, average to below average. Cornerbacks, below average. That's what this team is right now. Now, can they go in there and beat Ole Miss? Depends on the mindset. I'm wondering what that locker room's like. Here's the other thing, guys. Now, I'll put it being long-winded. Nick Saban, for the first time ever, looks worn, tired, and haggard. And he looks like I've got no answers here. I cannot get to this team. It reminds me of the 2010 team that Alabama had.
That's amazing to think about. It really is. So Georgia, I mean, is the class of the SEC right now, and I'm not sure if it's even very close. Yeah, not even close. I mean, what they were able to do to the Tennessee offense was just sort of mind-blowing. And I don't see anybody right now in the SEC necessarily that can take them down. Do you think LSU would have a shot if it got to them in Atlanta?
I mean, a shot, yeah, 1 in 100. Georgia needs to be motivated. I've been told by people in Athens at that game, that's the loudest they've ever. Vince Dooley era, Wally Butts era, Herschel Walker up and down, doesn't matter. Loudest they've ever heard it. They sacked Hendon Hooker 6 times.
Yeah.
He'd only been sacked 10 times the whole year.
Georgia only had 10 sacks going into the game. That's the other crazy thing.
He didn't look comfortable the entire game. Hooker did
Correct.
Yeah, he didn't look comfortable the entire game.
And Tennessee guys, as a team, let's face it, they haven't done a whole lot in the last 20 years. As a team, they look like they were a little, and I don't want to call somebody scared, but a little timid in the moment. I think the moment was a little too big for them.
Well, so TCU is the darling right now. You know, when it comes to not the darling, but they're like the underdog of all of the undefeated teams. They get in if they're undefeated, right? There's no way that TCU doesn't get in if they're undefeated. They've got the resume for it. They just have to be undefeated.
Committee will put them in. And anytime I really enjoyed watching TCU, that offense and the job Sonny Dykes has done. And anytime I get tight where I'm trying to figure out a team, I try and go back into history. This one's pretty easy. The likelihood that TCU finishes against Texas, where they're about a 7-point underdog, Baylor, and then a repeat against somebody good, is very unlikely. It just is. Now, again, you're right. If they're undefeated, they're in. I don't even think there's much of a debate that'll go on. I just don't think it's likely they finish out undefeated.
Yeah, I'm with you. What about that Clemson? Louisville hosting Clemson. Could they lose back-to-back games? Now, that was just a weird – I don't know if you watched that Notre Dame-Clemson game, but talk about a weird game. Clemson let Notre Dame just kind of bully them a little bit. Yeah,
now that's what Notre Dame's capable of, except we didn't see it against Marshall. We didn't see it against Stanford at home either. But they have the players to do that. They've got a massive offensive line with probably 3 to 4 pros on that offensive line. Their defensive line is a veteran group that's had a lot of success. And they've got a young corner, Benjamin Morrison, who's probably going to be a first-team All-American, a freshman All-American, who had a 96-yard pick. I didn't think they'd be up 35-0 or 35-7, whatever it was. But that mashing, and they took a Clemson D-line that's arguably top 2-3 defensive lines in America. But yeah, Clemson's a little vulnerable. Yeah, and Louisville's been shockingly pesky this year. You know, they've been a surprise.
I mean, you probably end up with two undefeated teams, right? If you don't trust TCU to finish it out, Ohio State and Michigan have to play each other. Whoever that team that wins that game, they're going to wipe the floor with the champion out of the East. So then you're down to two undefeated teams. Who's the best in the Big Ten? Now, you've been pumping up Ohio State all year long. Michigan's right there with them.
Yeah. That game's going to be fun, guys. It is every year, but it's two totally different blueprints. You've got Stroud. You've got All-American receivers running over each other, getting open. And when they're healthy, and they've been banged up at running back, but their running backs are really good when they're right. And their defense, when they hired Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State, has been remarkably improved. Michigan thinks they can bully him because Michigan is a get in the phone booth and let's fight. And I'm not letting you out. That's their game. And they did that to Ohio State last year, and Ohio State buckled and went to the canvas. Now, they won't do that this year, but that game, I see these 10, 11, 12-point spreads. I think that's a 50-50 game. I really do. It's in the horseshoe. Give that to Ohio State. But it's going to be Harbaugh wanting to bloody your nose and break your jaw against Stroud and those receivers. And something's got to give. That's going to be fun.
Stroud sort of like ahead in the Heisman voting. Did the Hendon Hooker train just kind of get derailed by Georgia?
Yes, I think Hooker would be 2 right now, but Stroud I think would be back in the 1 slot. And look, Tennessee's very alive. And matter of fact, you see one of those predictors? Their percentages went up after the loss because Clemson lost and then Alabama lost. And that helped Tennessee.
Because they don't have to play the championship game, yeah.
Correct. Tennessee's probably a 50% or better right now chance. Now, they don't need TCU to win out. TCU wins out. I think that aces them. I think Oregon, as well as they're playing, Bo Nix, guys, I know he's out west, so we don't get to see him as much anymore, as having a phenomenal year. You wouldn't recognize him compared to that first game against Georgia. But they lost that game by 46 points. I just don't know that the committee, even if they win the Pac-12, can get past that.
It'd be something to think about, like a one-loss Tennessee team that doesn't win its division, making it into the playoff over the Pac-12 champion, just because. Essentially, would come down to because they're the Pac-12 champion. I think we talk eye test and all those sort of things, but the Pac-12 is just discounted by the committee. I just think they are.
They've gotten Washington a couple of years ago, and they played against Alabama in the semis, couldn't move the ball. And then Oregon, year 1, played Ohio State in the championship. That's about it. And I'm wondering, though, the committee will never admit this, but will there be a sympathy thought about we got to balance this out, let somebody out west that's won their league with only 1 loss, we got to let them in. I just wonder if they would think that way. I can't get past the 46-point loss.
I think Tennessee, if Tennessee wins out in Oregon and they both have 1 loss, I think Tennessee would still be ahead of Oregon. Then you'd have that Michigan, Ohio State. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Now, let me give you guys a quick one. What if LSU wins out, including against Georgia, which I don't think happens, but what if the committee's now got to deal with a 2-loss team that they've never let in before?
Well,
got to remember, a few years ago they didn't let Penn State in. Penn State won the league, lost 2 games early, lost to Pitt, got killed by Michigan, beat Ohio State, won the league. They didn't let them in. They let Ohio State in, and they won the league. So we've seen this before.
It's why we're going to move to a 12-team playoff eventually. It won't quite be as chaotic, but hey, we'll be arguing about the 12th and 13th teams to the very end, just like the basketball tournament. Bill, we'll leave it there. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. Enjoy the week, and we'll do it again Wednesday.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Bill.
King hosting 6 to 9, Nashville Sports Radio, WNSR. Give it a listen when you're not listening to the Morning Rush, which I know you are every day. And you've also probably been trying Lark recently. You know Lark, that full-spectrum seltzer brought to you by Washita Farms. Just the right balance of hemp-derived THC and CBD. Lark has no booze at all, but you can catch a buzz anyway. They don't have any alcohol in it. No sugar, no carbs, no calories, but it tastes great. Flavors, strawberry guava, mango, grapefruit, and berry. And you're going to love it. You can use it as a mixer or drink it by itself. Lark's available at your local adult beverage store. You can go to larkhemp.com and order it right there. They'll ship it to your home. Got to be 21 years of age or older to consume Lark. Phone lines are open, 877-377-6963, and halftime is right back.
Football is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.